The alarm sliced through Ethan Cole's sleep at 5:47 a.m., 3 minutes before he'd actually programmed it, some glitch in the phone's operating system he'd been meaning to fix for weeks but never had time to address. He silenced it with a practiced swipe, eyes still closed, already mentally sorting through the day ahead like shuffling cards. 7:30 strategy meeting, 9 o'clock client call with the West Coast team, 11 o'clock budget review, 1 o'clock lunch with potential investors, 3 o'clock creative briefing, 5 o'clock. What was at 5 o'clock? He'd check his calendar in the shower. Ethan's apartment in Midtown Manhattan was minimalist by design and necessity, sleek furniture in grays and blacks, nothing on the walls except a single abstract print he'd bought because the real estate agent said it made the space look curated. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced east, and even before he opened his eyes fully, he could sense the quality of light. Another October morning, sharp and clear, the kind that made New York's glass towers look like they were carved from crystal. He moved through his routine with the efficiency of someone who'd eliminated every unnecessary motion. Shower, 6 minutes, shave, 3 minutes, suit, navy today, pressed yesterday evening by the service downstairs, shoes, oxblood Oxfords, already polished, watch, vintage Rolex his father had given him when he made junior executive, with the inscription he never read anymore, phone, charging on the kitchen counter, already buzzing with notifications. By 6:23, he was out the door. The subway at this hour was its own peculiar ecosystem, a mix of night shift workers heading home and early risers like himself, everyone maintaining the careful bubble of personal space that New Yorkers perfected as an art form. Ethan stood near the doors, one hand on the pole, the other scrolling through emails on his phone. A subject line from his boss, Thursday presentation, we need to talk. His stomach tightened, but he filed it away mentally. Deal with it at the office. Stay focused. The subway lurched and swayed, carrying him through the tunnels beneath the city. Ethan had learned to read his stops by feel rather than sight, the particular rhythm of the tracks, the specific quality of the turn. When the doors opened at his station, he was already moving, part of the human current flowing up the stairs and out into the morning. Bryant Park was just waking up, maintenance crews clearing the overnight debris, early joggers doing their loops, pigeons staging their eternal occupation of every available surface. Ethan cut through the park on autopilot, his route so established he could have walked it blind. Past the fountain, turned off for the season, past the library steps, where a homeless man slept under blankets that had once been sleeping bags, past the cafe tables, still stacked and chained, and finally to the small coffee shop tucked into the corner of 40th and 6th. Grind and grace. He'd been coming here for 3 years, ever since he joined Catalyst Marketing and rented the Midtown apartment. The place was nothing special, 12 seats, exposed brick, a chalkboard menu that never seemed to change, and a line that was always exactly long enough to make you consider leaving but never quite long enough to justify the inconvenience. The coffee was good, not great, but it was consistent, and consistency was what Ethan valued above almost everything else. The barista was already preparing his order, he could see the man's practiced movements through the window. Raymond. Late 60s, maybe early 70s, with hair gone completely white and hands that moved with the deliberate care of someone who'd spent a lifetime working with them. He'd been there every morning for as long as Ethan had been coming, always the opening shift, always with that same gentle smile that seemed wildly out of place in the pre-dawn Manhattan rush. Ethan pushed through the door, already reaching for his wallet. The morning playlist was on, something jazzy and low-key that would shift to something more energetic by 8 o'clock. 2 people ahead of him in line, a woman in scrubs who looked like she was ending a night shift rather than starting a day, and a kid who couldn't be more than 22, wearing headphones so large they looked like safety equipment. Morning, Mr. Cole, Raymond said when Ethan reached the counter. He said it every day, even though Ethan had never introduced himself, he must have gotten the name from the credit card. The usual. Black coffee, large. Thanks. Coming right up. Ethan watched Raymond work while simultaneously scanning his phone. 43 new emails since he'd checked in the subway. 43. He thumb-typed a response to one, flagged 3 others, archived a dozen that were clearly mass sends. When he looked up, Raymond was doing something Ethan had never really noticed before, despite 3 years of morning transactions. He was drawing in the coffee. Not just pouring, drawing. With a small metal implement, Raymond carefully traced a design into the crema, the golden foam that topped the espresso shot. A circle, 2 dots, a curved line. A smiley face. Simple, almost childish, but executed with surprising precision. Raymond snapped the lid on, and the artwork disappeared. He handed the cup across the counter with that same gentle smile. "There you go. You have a good day now." Ethan took the cup, frowning slightly. "You drew something in the coffee." "I did." Raymond was already moving on to the next order, greeting the woman behind Ethan with the same warmth. A little smile. Starts the day right. "But then you put the lid on." Raymond glanced back, his expression bemused. "Well, I can't very well send you out with an open cup, can I? You'd spill it all over 6th Avenue. But..." Ethan felt suddenly, inexplicably frustrated. "What's the point? Nobody sees it. You just cover it up." The old man paused, his hands hovering over the espresso machine. He looked at Ethan directly for perhaps the first time in 3 years, and his eyes were a startling blue, clear and sharp despite his age. "Sometimes, Mr. Cole, small gestures stop big storms. You'd be surprised what a difference they make, even the ones nobody sees." Ethan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. The woman behind him shifted impatiently. He was holding up the line, standing there with his coffee, questioning a barista about foam art. He nodded curtly and left, the bell above the door chiming his exit. The morning swallowed him back into its rhythm, the walk to his building, the elevator to the 23rd floor, the glass doors of Catalyst Marketing, the maze of cubicles and offices that led to his desk. His team was already gathering in the conference room for the 7:30. Ethan dropped his bag, took a long drink of his coffee, it tasted exactly as it always did, and joined them. The meeting did not go well, his presentation, 3 weeks of work, dozens of late nights, a comprehensive strategy for their biggest client's Q4 campaign, was picked apart piece by piece. His boss, Marcus Webb, sat at the head of the table with his arms crossed, his expression growing progressively more sour as Ethan clicked through slides. "I'm not seeing the innovation here," Marcus interrupted halfway through. "This is safe. This is what we did last quarter with different colors. The client specifically requested. The client doesn't know what they want until we show them something they can't look away from." Marcus leaned forward. "That's our job, Ethan. We're supposed to be 3 steps ahead, not 3 steps behind, covering our asses with safe choices." Around the table, Ethan's team studied their laptops with sudden intensity. Nobody met his eyes. The rest of the presentation limped to its conclusion, and Marcus dismissed everyone with a curt, "We'll revisit this Friday. Bring me something that doesn't look like a template." Ethan gathered his materials in silence. His hands were shaking slightly, rage or humiliation, he couldn't quite tell. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of work, dismissed in 20 minutes. He walked back to his desk, past colleagues who suddenly found reasons to be looking elsewhere, and sat down heavily in his chair. His email was still open. That message from Marcus, sent at 4:30 a.m., Thursday presentation, "We need to talk." He should have known. Should have prepared better, worked harder, anticipated the critique. Should have been 3 steps ahead instead of just trying to keep pace. Ethan stared at his screen without seeing it. The office hummed around him, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the low murmur of conversations in adjacent cubicles. Everyone moving forward while he sat frozen, questioning everything. When had he become someone who produced template work? When had he started playing it safe? The day dragged on with the weight of failure. The client call went through without him, Marcus handled it directly, which was never a good sign. The budget review revealed they were over on 3 accounts and under-delivering on 2. Lunch with investors was cancelled last minute. By 5 p.m., when the creative team filed into his office for the briefing, Ethan could barely summon the energy to care. He went through the motions, distributing assignments, answering questions with half his attention. His team left looking deflated, and Ethan knew that was his fault too. He was supposed to inspire them, energize them, make them believe their work mattered. Instead, he'd just distributed tasks like a manager at a warehouse. He stayed late, not because he was working but because he couldn't face going home to that empty, curated apartment where even the art on the wall was chosen by someone else. At some point past 8, the cleaning crew came through. At 9, security made their rounds. At 9:47, Ethan finally shut down his computer and left. The subway home was nearly empty. A few scattered passengers, most of them dozing despite the bright fluorescent lights. Ethan took a seat and stared at his reflection in the dark window across from him. 34 years old. Junior executive at a firm he'd once been thrilled to join. Salary that let him live in Manhattan. And sitting alone on a subway at night, questioning whether any of it meant anything at all. The alarm went off at 5:47. Ethan silenced it and lay in bed for an extra minute, staring at the ceiling. He didn't want to move. Didn't want to face another day of trying to prove he wasn't mediocre, wasn't replaceable, wasn't just another suit riding the subway and ordering coffee and producing template work. But habit was stronger than desire. By 6:23, he was out the door. By 6:45, he was cutting through Bryant Park. By 6:52, he was pushing through the door of Grind and Grace. Raymond was there, of course. Same white hair, same gentle smile, same practiced movements behind the counter. He looked up when Ethan entered, and something in his expression suggested he saw more than Ethan wanted to show. "Morning, Mr. Cole." "The usual." Ethan nodded, unable to find his voice. He watched Raymond work, measuring the grounds, tamping them down, positioning the cup, pulling the shot. And then, that same small ritual, the metal tool, the careful design traced into the crema. A smiley face. Raymond snapped the lid on, hiding it, and handed the cup across. "Why do you do that?" Ethan heard himself ask. "Every day." The little face. "Why?" Raymond didn't seem surprised by the question. He wiped down the steamer wand, taking his time before answering. "Because most people I serve forget that kindness doesn't need a reason. They're rushing somewhere, stressed about something, carrying weight they don't share. And I can't fix any of that. But I can give them a smile, even if they never see it. Even if it only exists for a few seconds before the lid goes on. But what does it change?" Ethan's voice came out harsher than he intended. "What difference does a drawing in foam make to anything real?" Raymond looked at him with those clear blue eyes, and Ethan felt suddenly, uncomfortably exposed, as if the old man could see past the navy suit and the polished shoes to something Ethan himself had been avoiding. "You'd be surprised," Raymond said quietly, "what happens when someone remembers kindness exists. Not big gestures. Not grand plans. Just small moments of caring. They add up, Mr. Cole. They ripple out in ways we don't see." Ethan took his coffee and left without responding. But as he walked through the morning streets, he found himself thinking about Raymond's hands, how they moved with such care despite knowing the result would be hidden. How he showed up every morning at dawn to serve rushed, distracted people who barely saw him. How he smiled genuinely at strangers who never smiled back. Small gestures. Small moments. At his desk, before the avalanche of emails could bury him, Ethan did something he hadn't done in months. He walked to his team's workstations and asked how they were. Not perfunctorily, not as a prelude to assigning work, but actually asked and actually listened. Sarah, his junior designer, was dealing with her mother's cancer treatments. Tom, the copywriter, had a new baby who wasn't sleeping. Michelle had just gotten engaged. David was training for a marathon. These were people he'd worked alongside for 2 years, and he'd never known any of this. "You okay?" Sarah asked when he paused by her desk, seeming genuinely concerned. "Yesterday was rough. Yeah, Ethan said. Yeah, I'm okay. Listen, about that briefing yesterday, I wasn't great. I was in my own head about the presentation thing, and I took it out on the team. That wasn't fair. Sarah blinked, surprised. It's okay. We all have bad days. Maybe. But you all still have work to do, regardless of my bad days. So let me ask, what do you need? How can I actually help instead of just distributing assignments? The conversation that followed was brief but real. Sarah had ideas she'd been afraid to share. Tom needed more context on the client's vision. Michelle wanted feedback on her concepts before committing to full executions. David just needed the deadline pushed back 2 days so he could actually do his best work instead of rushing something mediocre. Ethan made notes. Made promises. And for the first time in weeks, he felt like he was doing his actual job, not managing tasks, but enabling people. He did the same thing at lunch, sitting in the break room instead of at his desk, asking co-workers about their weekends and their projects and their lives. He stayed late again, but this time working with his team rather than in isolation, looking at Sarah's ideas, which were better than his own, giving Tom the context he needed, providing thoughtful feedback to Michelle. At some point past 7, David looked up from his desk and said, "This is good work. Like, really good. I think we've got something here." And Ethan realized he was smiling. Not the tight, professional smile he wore in meetings, but a genuine expression of satisfaction. They did have something. Something better than template work. Something 3 steps ahead. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Ethan still had bad days, still felt the pressure, still got critical feedback from Marcus. But something had shifted, some fundamental recalibration of what mattered and why. He started arriving at Grind and Grace 5 minutes earlier, not just to grab coffee but to actually exchange a few words with Raymond. He learned the old man had been a carpenter before arthritis forced him into retirement, that he had 3 grandchildren he saw every Sunday, that he'd chosen to work mornings at a coffee shop because it let him be part of people's beginnings. Every day's a fresh start, Raymond explained one morning. People come in tired, stressed, worried about what's ahead. I like being part of that moment before they face it all. Sending them out with something good. Ethan started thinking about what he was sending his team out with, what kind of beginning he was creating for their days. He made a point of arriving before everyone else, so he could greet them as they came in rather than already being buried in his own stress. He asked questions. He listened to answers. He said thank you. Small things. Small gestures. But they accumulated. Sarah started staying late not because she had to but because she wanted to see her ideas through. Tom's writing got sharper, more confident. Michelle took creative risks she'd been afraid to attempt. David stopped looking exhausted and started looking energized. The presentation they delivered to Marcus 3 weeks later wasn't just good, it was exceptional. Innovative. 3 steps ahead. Marcus approved it with minimal changes, and when the client saw it, they increased their contract. I don't know what you did, Marcus said to Ethan afterward, but whatever kicked you out of that safe choice rut, keep doing it. Ethan thought about Raymond's hands, carefully drawing a smile into foam that would be hidden seconds later. Just stop forgetting what matters, he said. The department's energy changed over the following months. People started collaborating more, sharing ideas more freely, staying late not out of pressure but because they believed in what they were building. Ethan noticed his team members adopting some of his new habits, greeting each other warmly in the mornings, asking genuine questions, expressing gratitude for good work. Small gestures, rippling outward in ways nobody tracked or measured. One morning in late November, Ethan arrived at Grind and Grace to find a different barista behind the counter, a young woman with pink hair and multiple earrings. "Where's Raymond?" Ethan asked, feeling suddenly worried. "Oh, he retired. Last week. Said it was time to spend more mornings with his grandkids." She smiled. "He left something for you, actually. Said you came in every day around the same time. Hang on." She ducked below the counter and emerged with an envelope. Ethan's name was written on the front in careful script. He took it, nodded his thanks, and stepped aside to open it. Inside was a note card with a simple message. Mr. Cole. Thank you for noticing. Most people never do. I hope you keep sharing the smiles, the visible ones and the hidden ones. They all matter. Small gestures stop big storms. Remember that when things get hard. Raymond. Tucked behind the note was a photograph, Raymond and his 3 grandchildren, all 4 of them grinning at the camera. On the back, in that same careful script, my daily reminder of what matters. Ethan stood in the coffee shop, holding the photograph, feeling something tight in his chest loosen. Around him, the morning rush continued, people ordering, leaving, rushing to their jobs and their lives. But for just a moment, Ethan was still, present, aware of the countless invisible kindnesses that held the world together. He ordered his coffee, black, large, and when the young barista handed it across, he looked at her directly and smiled. Thank you, he said. I really appreciate it. She blinked, surprised by the intensity of his sincerity. Oh. You're welcome. Have a great day. Walking through Bryant Park, Ethan thought about Raymond's words. Small gestures stop big storms. He thought about his own storm, the one that had nearly capsized him, the one made of stress and pressure and the constant feeling of not being enough. And he thought about the small gesture that had helped him weather it, an old man drawing smiley faces in foam, caring about moments nobody else would see. At his office, Ethan made a decision. He pulled up his email and sent a message to his entire team. Subject, thank you. I wanted to take a moment to tell you all something I should have said months ago. Thank you. Thank you for your creativity, your dedication, your willingness to take risks and push boundaries. Thank you for showing up every day and caring about the work. I know this job is demanding. I know there are days when it feels thankless. But please know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm grateful to work alongside people who care about excellence. Keep being excellent. It matters more than you know. Ethan. He hit send before he could second guess it. 30 seconds later, replies started arriving. Sarah, this made my morning. Tom, means a lot, thank you. Michelle, right back at you, boss. David, appreciate you too. Small words. Small gestures. But the energy in the office that day was different, lighter, warmer, more connected. People smiled at each other in the hallways. They lingered in conversations instead of rushing past. They shared ideas more freely. Ethan thought about ripples in water, how a single stone creates waves that spread far beyond the impact point. How those waves touch shores the thrower never sees. That afternoon, he walked to a nearby stationery shop and bought a small moleskine notebook. On the first page, he wrote, things that mattered today. And below that, he started a list. Sarah shared a brilliant concept she'd been afraid to pitch. Tom laughed at lunch for the first time in weeks. Michelle complimented David's work unprompted. The intern asked a question instead of pretending to understand. I remembered to say thank you. Small moments. Small gestures. But they were the texture of his days, the substance of his work, the foundation of the change he'd been seeking. 6 months later, Ethan received a promotion. Marcus called him into the office and offered him a senior executive position, citing his transformation of team dynamics and consistently exceptional output. It came with a significant raise, a corner office, and increased responsibility. Ethan accepted, but he knew the promotion wasn't the real change. The real change was quieter, harder to measure. It was in how he moved through his days, more present, more grateful, more aware of the people around him. It was in the smiles that had become genuine instead of professional. It was in the 5 minutes he spent each morning at Grind and Grace, chatting with the pink-haired barista whose name he'd learned was Alex, asking about her music. She played in a band on weekends, her studies, graphic design at SVA, her life beyond the counter. It was in the way his team no longer looked deflated when he entered a room, but energized. The way they stayed late not because they were afraid of disappointing him, but because they believed in what they were building together. One evening, Sarah knocked on his new office door. "Got a minute?" "Always." "What's up?" She hesitated, then said, "I just wanted to tell you, you changed. Like, really changed. And it made all of us better. I don't know what happened, but thank you. For showing us that work doesn't have to feel like drowning." Ethan thought about Raymond's hands, carefully drawing smiles nobody would see. "Someone reminded me that kindness doesn't need a reason," he said. "That small gestures matter, even when nobody notices. Especially then." Sarah smiled. "Well, we noticed. And it made a difference." After she left, Ethan pulled out his Moleskine, now on its 3rd volume, and added a new entry. "Sarah said thank you for changing. But I didn't change alone. We all changed together, one small gesture at a time." He looked at the photograph on his desk, not the one from his father, but the one Raymond had given him. 4 people smiling at a camera, their joy uncomplicated and genuine. His daily reminder of what mattered. True change, Ethan had learned, doesn't start with grand plans or sweeping transformations. It starts with small acts of kindness that ripple beyond our sight. A smile drawn in foam and hidden by a lid. A genuine question asked of a colleague. A moment of gratitude expressed when nobody expects it. These are the stones that create waves. These are the gestures that stop storms. Next time you meet someone in a rush, smile. Ask how they are and actually listen to the answer. Say thank you and mean it. These small gestures may not change your life in that moment, but they could change someone else's. And that someone else might change another's. And the ripples spread, invisible and unstoppable, until the world is a little kinder than it was before. Small gestures. Big impact. Be StoryWise.